My family thought leaving me alone at an empty restaurant table on my 35th birthday was just a funny little joke. When I called my mom asking where everyone was, she actually laughed and said, "Sorry, sweetie, we had more important plans," before hanging up. She thought I'd sit there in tears, quiet and humiliated. But instead of crying into my birthday dinner, I took out my phone and posted a single photo with a caption that exposed their true priorities to our entire community. Within hours, my simple post triggered a massive public fallout, forcing my parents to race over to my house in a total panic, furious that I'd ruined their golden reputation. Follow my story to the end to see how one post flipped the tables, and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Rachel, and turning 35 was supposed to be a major milestone for me. I had booked a private table at La Hermitage, a lovely upscale bistro in town, specifically chosen because my mother had been dropping hints for months about wanting to try their tasting menu. I spent weeks coordinating the reservation, prepaying for a custom cake, and making sure the staff was ready for a party of 6, my parents, my younger brother Julian, his fiancée, my best friend, and me. By 7:30 p.m., the dining room was buzzing with music and the clinking of wine glasses. The only quiet spot in the entire venue was my 6-person table. A single decorative candle flickered in the center, casting a long shadow over 5 empty chairs. The waiter, a polite young man named David, had already refilled my water glass 3 times, casting compassionate, awkward glances in my direction. "Should I hold off on bringing out the appetizers, ma'am?" David asked gently, shifting his weight. "Just 5 more minutes," I replied, forcing a polite smile. "They're probably just stuck in traffic." By 8 p.m., an entire hour after the reservation time, no one had arrived. My best friend had messaged me earlier that afternoon explaining that her flight back from a work conference was delayed, which I completely understood. But my family? They hadn't sent a single text. My fingers trembled as I dialed my mother's cell phone. It rang 4 times before she finally picked up. In the background, I could hear loud music, energetic voices, and the distinct sound of silverware clinking against plates. "Mom?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Where are you guys?" "I've been waiting at the restaurant for an hour." There was a brief pause, followed by a light, dismissive chuckle. "Oh, Rachel. Sweetie, I completely forgot to text you," my mother said, sounding entirely unbothered. Julian got last-minute tickets to the playoff game, and his fiancée's parents booked a table for all of us at the steakhouse right near the arena. "We're celebrating Julian's new promotion." I froze. "Mom, it's my 35th birthday. We planned this dinner 3 weeks ago." She laughed again, a sharp, patronizing sound that echoed in my ear. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Rachel. You turn a year older every year. Julian getting promoted to regional manager is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement. We had more important plans tonight. We'll grab coffee sometime next week, okay? Enjoy your dinner." Before I could even speak another word, the line went dead. I sat frozen in Floyd's leather chair, or rather, in the plush booth of the restaurant, feeling a deep, familiar coldness settle into my chest. This wasn't the first time my family had treated me like an afterthought, but somehow, sitting there at 35, it hit me with absolute clarity. For as long as I could remember, I was the backup child. I was the reliable, self-sufficient eldest daughter who never caused trouble, maintained a successful career as a marketing consultant, and quietly handled everyone's crises behind the scenes. Julian, on the other hand, was the family golden boy. Every minor accomplishment of his was treated like a national holiday, while my major milestones were barely acknowledged. When I graduated college cum laude, my parents spent the entire dinner talking about Julian's high school varsity soccer stats. When I bought my first townhouse, my mother criticized the neighborhood and immediately asked if Julian could sleep on my couch for a few months while he figured out his life, a stay that ended up lasting a year and cost me thousands in unpaid groceries and utilities. Whenever my parents needed money for home repairs, emergency loans, or someone to pet sit their golden retrievers for 2 weeks while they vacationed in Florida, I was the first person they called. I always said yes because I naively believed that if I proved my worth enough, they would eventually love and respect me the same way they loved Julian. Sitting alone at that dinner table, surrounded by $300 worth of prepaid food and a custom cake that read Happy 35th Birthday, Rachel, the scales finally fell from my eyes. I realized that my worth to them was entirely transactional. I wasn't their daughter. I was their convenience. When David came back to the table with a look of genuine pity, asking if I wanted him to box up the food, I looked at him and said, "David, please bring out all the entrees, all the appetizers, and the cake. And then, I'd like you and the kitchen staff to take a break and sit down with me." David was stunned at first, but after realizing I was entirely serious, his eyes lit up. Within 10 minutes, 3 waiters, the line cook, and the hostess joined me at the table. We ate incredible steak, drank champagne, cut the custom birthday cake, and laughed. They were complete strangers, yet in less than an hour, they showed me more warmth and genuine human connection than my own mother had in 35 years. Before I paid the bill, adding a massive 50% tip for the staff, I asked David to take a picture of me at the table. I didn't want a picture where I looked broken or sad. I stood in front of a table, holding a slice of cake with a lit candle, surrounded by the warm, smiling restaurant staff. When I got into my car, I opened my phone. My mother clearly expected me to go home, cry into my pillow, and sweep this under the rug like I always did. She expected me to accept her dismissive promise of a cheap coffee next week. Instead, I uploaded the photo to Facebook and Instagram, where our entire extended family, my mother's church group, my father's business associates, and all our mutual family friends would see it. I wrote a simple, dignified caption. No profanity, no scream ing, and no overt insults, just the plain, unvarnished truth. Sitting alone at an empty table reserved for 6 on my 35th birthday wasn't how I envisioned tonight going. When I called my mom to see where everyone was, she laughed and reminded me that they had more important plans celebrating my brother at a steakhouse across town. But life has a funny way of blessing you. Huge thank you to the incredible staff at La Hermitage for stepping in, sharing my cake, and showing me what real family and kindness look like. Here's to 35 years of learning my worth. I tagged the restaurant, tagged my mother, father, and brother, set the post to public, and put my phone on silent. I drove home, poured myself a glass of wine, and took a long, hot bath. I didn't check my phone for 2 full hours. When I finally picked up my device from the nightstand, the screen was practically glowing with notifications. My simple post had completely exploded. Because I had lived in the same mid-sized community my whole life, my parents were well-known figures. My father was a senior partner at a local accounting firm, and my mother was the head of the local garden club and an active board member at her church. Their entire lives revolved around maintaining a picture-perfect image of suburban morality and family devotion. My post had shattered that facade in a matter of minutes. There were over 400 comments and dozens of shares. My Aunt Sarah had commented, "Evelyn, tell me you did not abandon your daughter on her milestone birthday for a basketball game. What is wrong with you?" A prominent member of my father's firm left a comment saying, "Unbelievable behavior. Rachel, you showed incredible grace tonight. Happy birthday." Dozens of family friends, former high school teachers, and neighbors were publicly calling out my parents, expressing complete disgust at their cruelty. People were resharing the photo, praising the restaurant staff, and slamming my mother's taped quote, "We had more important plans." Beneath the public post was a mountain of missed calls and frantic text messages. 14 missed calls from Mom. 8 missed calls from Dad. 6 missed calls from Julian. Text from Mom at 9:30 p.m. "Rachel, delete that post immediately. People are calling your father's phone." Text from Mom at 9:45 p.m. "You are making us look like monsters. Take it down right now." Text from Dad at 10:15 p.m. "Rachel, you've gone way too far this time. Pick up your phone." I took a slow sip of my wine, put the phone down, and smiled. They weren't sorry for hurting me. They were panicked because the world was finally seeing them for who they truly were. At 11 p.m., a loud, aggressive pounding echoed through my front door. I wasn't surprised. I calmly walked downstairs, unlocked the deadbolt, and pulled the door open. Standing on my porch were my mother and father. My mother's face was blotchy and red with anger, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. My father was pacing back and forth behind her, looking frantic. "Are you insane?" My mother shrieked the second the door swung open, shoving her way into my foyer. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My phone hasn't stopped ringing for 2 hours. Pastor Thomas sent me a message asking if everything was all right at home. Mrs. Gable said I was a terrible mother." "Hello to you too, Mom. Happy birthday to me," I said calmly, leaning against the hallway wall with my arms crossed. "Don't you dare give me that attitude, Rachel," my father snapped, stepping inside and pointing a stern finger at my face. "You humiliated this family. You posted a private matter on social media for the entire city to see. Do you know how bad this looks for my firm? Clients are commenting on that post." "I didn't lie about a single detail, Dad," I replied, keeping my voice completely steady. "Did you show up to my birthday dinner?" "We explained that," my mother yelled, waving her arms. "Julian had a major career breakthrough. We were going to celebrate with you next week. You acted like a spoiled, vengeful child because you didn't get your way." "Mom," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "You didn't forget. You chose to ignore my birthday. You laughed in my face on the phone and said you had more important plans. All I did was quote you word for word." "Delete the post right now," my father demanded, pulling out his checkbook. "Take it down, write a follow-up post saying it was all a joke and a misunderstanding, and I will write you a check for $5,000 right now. You can go on a nice vacation." I looked at the checkbook, then looked up at my father's cold, transactional face. "Keep your money, Dad," I said quietly. "The post stays up." My mother gasped as if I had physically struck her. "Rachel, if you don't take that post down, you're cut off from this family. Do you hear me? We will not tolerate you trying to ruin Julian's celebration and destroy our reputation." I looked at both of them, these two people who had spent 35 years making me feel small, invisible, and worthless, and realized they had zero power over me anymore. "Cut me off." I let out a soft laugh. "Mom, what exactly are you cutting me off from? Being ignored? Being called only when you need money or a dog sitter? Being forced to play second fiddle to Julian every single day of my life?" I stepped toward the door and opened it wide. "Let me tell you what's actually going to happen from now on," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet house like a blade. "I am done. I am done paying for Julian's phone bill, which I've been secretly covering for 2 years because he was too lazy to get a plan. I am done lending Dad my SUV whenever his car breaks down. I am done organizing your anniversary parties and doing your taxes for free." My father's mouth dropped open. My mother stared at me, completely speechless. "If your reputation is ruined, it's not because of my post," I continued. "It's because people finally know how you treat your own daughter. Now, get out of my house." My father tried to speak, but the absolute coldness in my eyes stopped him in his tracks. Realizing they were getting nowhere, my mother burst into dramatic, fake tears, muttering about how ungrateful I was as my father guided her down the porch steps. Over the next month, the fallout from that night ripples through their lives in ways they never anticipated. My mother was quietly asked to step down from her leadership role at the church social committee due to the public controversy. My father had to face awkward questions from his firm's partners about his family dynamics. And Julian? Without my secret financial safety net, he had to learn how to manage his own bills, quickly discovering that being the golden boy didn't pay the rent. 3 months have passed since that infamous 35th birthday night, and moving away from the toxic weight of my family has been the most liberating experience of my life. With the money I used to waste trying to buy my family's affection, I booked a solo trip to Italy. I spent 2 glorious weeks exploring Tuscany, eating incredible food, and surrounding myself with genuine friends who actually celebrate my existence. My parents have tried to send cautious, defensive text messages over the past few weeks, asking if we can put the past behind us. But I haven't replied. I finally realized that peace isn't about fixing people who refuse to see their own flaws. It's about removing yourself from their table when respect is no longer being served. Looking back, sitting alone at that empty restaurant table was the greatest birthday gift I could have ever received. It was the moment I stopped begging for a seat at a table where I was never truly valued and started building my own. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have taken the social media post down under pressure, or would you have let them face the truth like I did? A comment below and let me know your thoughts. And while you're there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click one of the 2 video stories on your screen right now for more incredible stories. Thank you for watching until the end.